my very first paying job was as a gift wrapper. And I think about the paying job where, you actually get a paycheck and then you have to figure out who that FICA person is and why they keep taking money out of your paycheck. But I started as a gift wrapper at a jewelry store at 16 years old. It was we're getting ready to go into the holiday season, and I thought it was the greatest thing. I got to work in the mall. I worked in a fancy store, and I just loved every bit of it. It felt very luxurious. So when I would go to work, there were days where, we wouldn't have much traffic. There's slow times in malls, there always have been. And we would spend time, I'd talk with my colleagues, about, how they got into sales and, why they liked what they were doing. Most of them had worked at the jewelry store for quite a long time, which at the time didn't resonate with me about how important that is about tenure. But throughout my career, I've thought about that often. But one of the things that was really fun for me is that I just had, I loved all these things. I loved all these beautiful things. And I would take home brochures at night, and I would learn about gemstones, and I would learn about diamonds and Rolex watches and Yadro porcelain and Waterford crystal. And I became this sponge, just so excited to soak up information as much as I possibly could. And it was about probably the 6 weeks or so into my job. And one of the sales reps and I were visiting, and it was just the two of us that night. It was near the end of the night. And somebody walked in the door and she said, you have been learning a lot about this. I think you know everything that I know about jewelry and about everything that we sell in here. So why don't you go take care of that customer? And she handed me, her little, wristband that had the keys to the cases. And I didn't even hesitate. I remember thinking, is this okay? But I thought, what the heck? So I went over and I introduced myself and I said, welcome, and what can I help you with today? What are you looking for today? And it ended up that man was looking for a diamond ring so that he could propose. And I ended up selling it to him. It was one of the most exquisite experiences that I'd ever had. To that point in time, I didn't know that I wanted to be in sales. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I was communicating. And in talking to him and asking him, what brought him into the store, I really got to the heart of the matter very quickly. And he seemed to not care what age I was. I knew about the product, I knew what he wanted, and not only was I able to sell it, but I really impressed my colleagues. So it was really funny that my manager found out about it a few days later, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in so much trouble. We're going to be in so much trouble. Who lets a 16-year-old girl sell diamond rings? Well, he was a great, great leader. And I remember him saying, so tell me what you did and how did you go through it? And did you have any problems, ringing up the sale? And I said, no, I knew already to run the cash register. I knew how to run a credit card. I'd already asked all those questions. And he said, okay, I want to see what you can do. And when you come into work tomorrow, I'm not going to have you be gift wrapper. I'm going to have you work on the floor, and let's see what you got. And after that, I never went back to gift wrapping. I was a salesperson. I was so blessed to work at that jewelry store all through high school and in college. And in fact, when I would be about to come home for college breaks, like, Christmas or spring break or the summer, my manager would be calling my parents to make sure he had the right phone number for me at school. And he would call and say, how many shifts do you want? We want you as much as possible. And so for a really good chunk of my career, I worked in what is a really elite sales environment. I did it really, really well. And for me, it really paved the path to my entire career. When I think about that transition from gift wrapper to VP of sales with a global medical device company where I was responsible for hundreds and hundreds of stores and hundreds of employees and hundreds of millions of dollars within the U.S. and partnering with my colleagues from all around the world, it seems like such an incredible journey. I took a lot of steps along the way, but every step that I took, I knew that I had potential. I knew there was potential that I had, and I knew there were things that I still needed to work on to make myself better. But I had this innate confidence that said, hey, you can do this. And even if you're scared, or even if you don't know how to do it, you can do it. So don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and start to, push yourself along a little bit farther, a little bit faster. So today I deal in potential. So my company is obviously called S.H.O.C.K Your Potential, and I always say that I deal in potential. Business potential, sales potential, professional potential. It's all about knowing what you can achieve, but knowing is not enough. You also have to be able to and willing to be able to take the steps to get there. So when you think about all the vast untapped potential that we all have, I always ask myself, why is it untapped? Why do we talk about untapped potential? And I think it's really because there's a part of each of us that knows we're capable of even more than we're doing. But oftentimes we're held back probably because of fear. And if not fear, then maybe it's because you're not quite sure what to do next. And that's why, as I move forward, my third book will be called S.H.O.C Your Potential, to really talk about the steps that each of us can take to achieve, exceed, and succeed at potential that we never thought possible. So when I talk about shocking your potential, I have a fun way to talk through it. And I take the letters in the word shock, and each one of them represents a part of the process. So if you really want to shock your potential, here's how we do it. Number 1, the S stands for stand out. Now, you may wonder, what does that mean? Obviously, I stand out. Well, I stand out physically in a lot of ways. I also stand out because of my name. Not many women are named Michael. I also stand out because I'm very high energy. But those aren't the things that I always want to be known for. I like to be known for those things, and they bring a lot of benefit to me. But when I think about my business potential and what I'm trying to do with my company, I also want to stand out in a couple of other ways. I try to stand out as being a thought leader, and I do that in the way that I operate, for instance, on LinkedIn every day. LinkedIn is usually where I start my blog most days of the week, and I have a little formula that I call Thoughts from the Coffee Table. There's a really critical reason why I do what I do with my blog. I use a funny picture that I've taken. I start with Thoughts from the Coffee Table, which is unique, and I'll explain in just a minute. And then usually my first line that is always visible above that first picture is something a little quirky. Now, I didn't come up with this brilliantly out of the blue. It evolved over time. I knew that I wanted to be considered as a thought leader on LinkedIn, and I knew that I wanted to reach people that wanted to work on their professional development. So in order to be thought of as a thought leader, I needed to be putting out content and putting it out regularly. So in the beginning, they were just kind of musings, almost like a thought of the day kind of thing. And for a while, I actually called it Thought of the Day. And I used stock images. Actually, in the beginning, I didn't use any images, and I realized how important images were. Then I began to use stock images. Then I began to craft everything, and I found that I wasn't standing out enough. I really wanted to play in this field in a way that would drive a true belief that I was a thought leader in the areas of leadership, sales, and customer experiences. And so as I made those steps forward, some right, some wrong, I finally found the formula that worked for me. So I use quirky pictures that I've taken with my own phone. I began to call it Thoughts from the Coffee Table because most days I start with a walk in the morning and would be coming back and drinking my coffee, and that's when I would be crafting my message. So they were my thoughts from the coffee table, literally. And I also found that the methodology of how I put the title and the first line captures people's attention, and it usually plays off the picture in some way that's a little weird. So for me, standing out was really making sure to take really positive steps that were going to make a difference in how people viewed me. And LinkedIn, I have almost 16,000 connections right now, and that's growing every day. But I've done that because people are interested in what I'm saying, and to me that tells me, it proves the point that I do stand out. The H stands for hone your skills. Now here's the thing that's really important. All of us have strengths, and those strengths are usually things that we should play and play well. Play them up, play them well, play them often. But we all have things that we still need to work on. I remember early in my career really having that sense of, every performance review was a mandate of what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, and how do we fix your weaknesses? And I'm not a big fan of fixing my weaknesses because then I just get distracted from my strengths. But there are skill gaps that I have had or do have even now that I either have to hone in order to make myself better at them, or I need to hire for them so that I don't have to worry about having that lack. Now, let me give you an example of a skill I had to hone. So long when I was a VP of sales for 2 different companies, love the sales process, love working with my sales managers and my direct salespeople, loved all the operational components of what I did, hated to work with the P&L. So just hated it, hated the numbers. In fact, it's the same thing with my company today, is that I finally handed over to the CFO and said, here, you are the CFO. Please take these numbers and financials away from me and tell me where we're off. But the reason that I initially did have to hone that skill was in the positions I had, I realized that I was standing out as a VP, and I had 3 or 4 colleagues at a time. But the reason I was standing out was not because I was standing out in a positive way. It was because I didn't have the same skill set that they did in being able to read a P&L and make business decisions based on that. So I knew this was a skill gap that I had, and I couldn't just hire it to take it up for me because I had to work within a budget of a company. But I could go find allies within the finance department, and that's exactly what I did. I actually went to one person in particular, and I said, and I just kind of laid my weakness out there, completely bare, and I said, I am not sure what I'm supposed to be looking at with this. I'm not sure why other people are fixated on the things that they're fixated on, and I need to know where my gap is. And he started laughing. I remember that he became a really good friend. And he said, you're right. It is common knowledge that you are the one person in among your colleagues that does not have this as a talent. And you may be getting judged for it, and probably rightly so. So I said, okay, well, I get that, and I freely admit to that. Can you help me? So we spent time then, every few days actually going through my numbers and understanding, and he really helped me to understand what my colleagues were looking at and why they were looking at it. I then began to ask better and better questions. But what really was the difference for me was when I realized that, each of us have different skills. And my skills were so strong in just, working with people and motivating them that I always used that more as a crutch when I also needed to hone some of these other skills. And the moment that I made the decision to transition, I could tell the difference not only with my colleagues, but definitely within myself. And I was able to make better decisions for my division based on what I knew with the numbers. So even though I may have avoided it for a while, finally, eventually really learning it made all the difference in the world. But what I knew then is I always needed to have a colleague that I could trust and that I was willing to say, look, I don't know this, and not be worried about it, not be worried about the repercussions. And that's really about how you hone your skill, is when you can, peel back the onion and say, it's pretty stinky underneath. So the O is one of my favorites because it's operate as if you're already there. Now, I don't mean fake it till you make it, because I hate that statement. You have to be authentic. But operating as if you've already made it means that if you're trying to reach some new high level of potential, let's say you want to make it to the VP level, and you are right now an area manager or a store manager. So the gap between where you are now and there is built on steps. There are different things that happen along the way. But there's also different characteristics of the people that make it to that VP or C-suite level, or anything that there's a difference from where you are and where you're going, that those people are practicing certain things that have helped them be successful. So operating as if you're already there means stopping to take a look at people who've already achieved what you're trying to achieve and do some investigating. Find out, what do they do? What do they read? How do they organize their day? What time do they get up? So if you want to be the Oprah Winfrey of, whatever in your industry, what time does Oprah get up? What does she eat for breakfast? When does she exercise? And it's not just about emulating people that maybe are huge stars, but it's about, going to that other leader that you really value and that you admire and saying, hey, I'd love to spend an hour just picking your brain, or half an hour picking your brain. Would you let me just ask you some questions about, what are the greatest lessons that you've learned? How do you organize your day? What's the greatest challenge that you face in your position? And once you find some of that information, then figure out what pieces you have gleaned that you can start to pull into your daily schedule. If you know that the person who's been most successful in your industry that you're emulating is every day reading the Wall Street Journal, first thing first, and the reason is that there's these 3 ways it correlates to their job, then start reading the Wall Street Journal every day first thing. So it'll be different for everybody. But operating as if you're already there means that you start to live the way that people have already hit those successes, what they do to get there and to maintain it. The C is cultivate people and opportunities that will get you there and will help support you on the way. This is really important to me. I think this is about networking on steroids. So networking is great. You know some people, you can call some people, you have a whole list of potential clients or whatever it is. But networking is only benefits you so far. Because if you don't really tap into it to the next level, then it's not going to help you to get to the next level. So cultivating people and opportunities means that you need to look for the right people to become a part of your circle. Not just connections, but be a part of your circle. And from those connections, you will find opportunities that you did not know before. Let me give you an example. I have a great friend, and he's a friend now, and his name is Eddie Luisi. And he is the stage manager with Good Morning America. I've met him because I've been in the audience at Good Morning America. And we have visited and we've had all these fun conversations, and I adore him. And he's one of the most incredible human beings on this planet. Now, being friends with somebody who's around all those people is great. I didn't like him for those reasons. I like him just because he's a complete joy. And he puts out this weekly message that's a little spiritual, but it's really positively based. And he impressed me so much that I interviewed him for my podcast. And I did it selfishly for me just because I wanted to ask him why he started doing this. What gives him the inspiration? How does he organize his thoughts? Because he brought so much to me just by all of his positivity. I wanted to learn more. The flip side of what it can turn into is that kind of collaboration and that kind of true connection with someone. He was so excited about the podcast afterward that he introduced me to some very important people within the ABC company. And that's something that I didn't expect. I definitely never would have dreamed of it happening. But he did that out of the goodness of his heart because we had a connection that was valued. And I'll tell you what, I will do anything to help him along his path as well. And that's when people and connections will really allow you to cultivate new opportunity as you're cultivating them. So the K is my favorite. Probably already said that with all of them. They're all my favorite. But the K is know your worth, know your value. This is tough for a lot of people. And knowing your worth and knowing your value doesn't mean, oh, I know how much you should pay me because I'm so valuable to this company. Knowing your worth and knowing your value means that you not only know you have potential, but you believe that it is imperative that you reach it, and that by reaching it, you are going to impact the rest of the world. Whatever way, even if it's the tiniest way. You talk about the butterfly, that flaps its wings on one side of the earth, and then on the other side of the earth we have a hurricane. It's all the pieces of knowing that moving forward towards our own potential, you have to know that you are worth it, and that the steps that you are taking will not only positively impact you, but they will make a difference all around you. So people ask me then all the time, how do I really shock my potential? All these things are great, but how do I put it together? Well, the key is this: you get nowhere without actually working this as a plan, which means you have to spend time thinking about each of the pieces. You need to write it down into a plan. You need to be able to talk through what they look like, and then you have to actually implement it. And one of the greatest things that I believe in is finding an accountability partner to help get you there. And later in some of my segments, I'm going to talk a lot about how you find an accountability partner, but I want to first tell you a story about my accountability partner. She doesn't even really know she's my accountability partner, although I know when she watches this, she'll know exactly who I'm talking about, and she'll probably laugh and say, "You're right." I have a person in my life who I have not seen her physically for many, many years. She was actually the very first person that I ever hired as a leader. She became a very good friend. She became a business partner. We later worked together in another company. We had another kind of joint venture with a direct marketing thing that we did many, many years ago. We've had our lives intertwined in many ways, personally and professionally. She is my accountability partner. What I mean by that is I'm not calling her all the time to say, "Hey, I need you to hold me accountable." But when there's something really, really important in my life and in my career, I always run it by her. Case in point, my very first book, I asked her to help me edit, knowing that she's very brutally honest. She's one of those people who will tell you if you're right. She will tell you if you're off track. She will love you no matter what. She won't make you feel like an idiot, but she does not have any desire to hold back the truth. And to me, that's an accountability partner at its core. It's somebody that you trust enough to know that the things that they're saying, the feedback that they'll give you, is because they love you enough to see you reach your full potential. And because they care enough to not try and water it down, but that they will always deliver what they think is going to help move you farther and faster towards your own potential. So I bet you can understand what the assignment's going to be. Following this, I want you to sit down and spend at least 20 minutes just with no outside distractions. Turn off your phone, turn off your email, and spend some time just journaling. If you had to decide how you want to stand out to achieve your goals, what would that look like? What does it mean to stand out? Do you stand out right now? And if so, in what way? Positive, negative, neutral? Then I want you to ask yourself, what skills do I need to hone? If I want to become an entrepreneur and I've never done it, I probably better learn a few things about entrepreneurship. If I want to become a manager but I haven't led anyone yet, probably should do some reading. So those skills are what you need to hone to get you from where you are today to where you want to be. How are you going to operate every day? So if you're really trying to reach new potential, you may not know how you need to operate yet to get where your ideal person or ideal position is, but you probably do know that you need to organize your day and spend some time researching it every day. Getting up at a certain time, making sure you exercise, going to bed, eating right, reading particular materials that will help you, listening to podcasts, all those things that help you get there. You'll know a few of them that you need to start operating within the boundaries right away. Cultivating people and opportunities means that you want to make a list of a few people that you just want to dialogue with, that you can talk to and say, "Hey, I really want to achieve this goal, and I've never put it out there like this, and I'd just love to have your feedback." And keep in mind that one of those people that you put on that list is probably somebody you would trust for your accountability partner. Not always, but it is possible. And then finally, know your worth, know your value. Spend some time really writing out that you believe in yourself, that you know you're capable of it, and that you know you're worth it. And once you've done that, review it and start to put it into motion.